to Chisme Culture, el podcast. My name is Rosa Maria Berdeja, and I am your host. I am so excited because today is our very first episode, and I have my beautiful friend Lorena Vargas as our very first guest. Welcome, Lorena.
Thank you for having me. I am super excited to be here. When I got the call, I was like, Rosie's doing this. And so this is a moment. I really wish we would embrace this a little bit more, just because it is a moment. You're making this platform for us Latinos to be here and share our stories, and go get it.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful for your friendship and your servant's heart, where you always give back to the community. And so this isn't the first time I call you, and you always take my calls and you always say yes. So thank you so much for always willing to be a part of everything that we do around here in our community.
Of course.
So let's start off by tell me a little bit about yourself. What is it you do, your family life, hobbies, likes, dislikes, anything that you want to share with our audience?
So I'm a mom, and I have two kiddos, Ashley and Matthew, and I'm the youngest of three. And so I have two sisters. And then, and I'm my mom, and raised a lot by my grandparents as well, and didn't have really a dad in my life. And in my career-wise, I work in education. I have a degree in education, and I work there. And I was a school teacher. I was an educator, and now I work in the compliance department and the testing. And then with the community, well, I help out a lot in the community. HWNT. Leadership Council, also Tough Stars Give Back. That's, something that we have together. And then we met in HWNT, and then also just Texas Wesleyan alum as well. And then things that I love to do as hobbies, honestly, now that I'm getting older, sitting outside of my patio drinking coffee.
Oh, that is one of my...
Makes me so happy.
Yes. I can relate to that.
I definitely believe that. Like, my sisters were like, what do you want to do for your vacation? And so I was like, can you just give me like a beach or the mountains? And I just sit on the patio and just drink my coffee or tea and just be happy with the environment, and no one bothers me.
That's my love language.
So that it has changed, but I also love to just go to the gym, run, jog, do more of the jogging outside, and then yoga. And I want to take a Pilates. So if there's ever anything about Pilates, please share that with me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I would love to do that with you. Okay, so you mentioned HWNT a couple of times. Can you tell us about that? What does HWNT stand for?
It's Hispanic Women's Network of Texas. I'm part of the footwear chapter. So we have 10 chapters in the state of Texas. And as you know, footwear is the biggest, and it's been around the longest. We've been around since 1986. It's a community of women helping each other professionally and personally to uplift each other and support, be mentors in whatever career path you chose. We're also there to help you with higher education. We have 2 MBAs that we give out to our members, which is exciting news for us because we believe that strongly. And then we also have help with people that are in the community like you and other people who are members of the HWNT that give their time of mentoring people and helping them in their career path, mock interviews. And then with that inclines, we also have an education program, which is Latinas in Progress. It's something that a lot of us members that are Latinas said we wish we had when we were younger, because it is very beneficial. It gives you so much resources. You go to 6 different campuses, helps you to navigate the waters that you're not used to navigating. And so, and they continue. We have LIP alum also, and they come back. And then we have professional development. And then you did that call for me too. Like, you answered the call, and I'm excited about that professional development that's coming out. And so hopefully that other people hear that and they'll come and hear you speak on that. And so, and also
really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Inviting you to that.
And Dr. Melanie as well, that she'll be part of it as well. So I think we're just in a community that we all help each other. And sometimes it's me reaching out to friends that I ask for that help. And sometimes they just know something is coming up, and then they reach out and they're like, hey, I know that this is coming up. How can I help you? And it's just a community that I've never been in before that I definitely have embraced.
And I know I've been to some of those Latino in Progress classes that you've had and the events that you all put together. And that program is just amazing. And when you say that people talk about, oh, that would have been amazing for me to have, I feel that way because that program, it teaches these young ladies how the importance of credit. It teaches them how to prepare a resume, how to apply for financial aid, how to apply for college. And a lot of us didn't have that resource or that guidance and that support. So I just think it's amazing that there's a whole organization of women that are being that for the next generation. And speaking of the generation, you are here today because our topic is being the first generation in your family to attend college. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that huge accomplishment. And tell me a little bit about that. When you were young, growing up, going through middle school, going through high school, were you planning on going to college? Tell me about how did that come about?
I will say that, I've talked at engagements and spoken on Latinas in Progress and told my story and told my story about in Texas Wesleyan as well. But for some reason, it just hit a little different when you called me to tell me, this is the session that we're going to be speaking of. I have no idea why. Like, I don't know what it was. And so I've really been thinking about it because first generation, and my daughter was asking me that too, first generation. And I was like immersed in it of what it really means. It's more than a title. And so when I started thinking about it, I was like, wait, I'm over here speaking and talking and having these engagements and sharing my story. But to me, it's way more than a title. It's about, breaking those barriers that we didn't have and, making dreams come true that are bigger than mine. And also just finding who I was along the way. I was finding myself and I'm still finding myself, I'm still going into different things. And I didn't know what, college was. The thing about it was, like I said, I was raised with my grandparents, with my mom and my sisters being my protectors. And my mom and my grandparents always told me, like, you should go for more. Like, you should go do more than I've done. And that word hasn't resonated in me until recently. And I have no idea why. I don't know if you ever get those feelings like you're doing something and someone tells you a word and you're like, well, what does that mean? And then later on you reflect and you're like, now I know. And so I think I had to go through it in order for me to understand. And so I didn't know what the word more meant. They just told me that I needed to do more than them. And my grandmother, taught me about my faith and my community help and being a servant leader. And my grandfather taught me how to educate myself in the school, like continue to read and continue to explore. And so he would buy me these little boxes that had information about animals and cities and countries. And they didn't have the TikTok shop or Instagram or Amazon. They had home network shopping. And so I would get them and he would pick out the cards that he wanted me to learn. And then I would bring it back and I would show him, a photo is what we teach ESL learners. We show them the photo. And then he would pick out what he wanted to learn about those photos because he didn't really have a lot of English under his belt. And so I was just teaching him and I didn't know that it was preparing me for later on. And then my grandmother, I think she always told me more because, she was 7 years old when she was raising her siblings, her family was working in the farms. And when they would get home, she was the older sister. So she had to cook for them and take care of the family. So just always doing more. And I didn't understand what college was. I didn't understand that word. I didn't understand what they were saying more. So when I got to elementary and high school, I was putting myself in everything. Choir, there's more.
Oh, I love it.
Plays, there's more. When I was in high school, athletics, I was putting myself in everything. Student council. I even participated, I will say this, in basketball. And I know you're going to laugh because you're like, your dream was never going to be professional basketball. But in my mind, I was 5'2". And because they told me more, I was thinking that that's what it was. And, I went to a high school, my very first high school, I went to, and they gave us these classes, and I forgot what the class was, but you also went to tour colleges. And it was no charter bus, just a regular school bus. And the first college we went to was TCC at South Campus. And then we visited Tarleton and we visited Baylor. And when I got in there, it was a different world. And so when I was there, I was like, oh, this is what they need more, because it wasn't a life that I was used to seeing. And so I was just like, this is what I want for myself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you went on those tours?
I was 14.
So you were starting high school?
Yeah, I was starting high school.
So as you're speaking of more and more and more, that word resonates so much with me, because sometimes I am invited to go speak at schools. And one of the things that I share when I share my story is that once I got to, my career and, my first job in a law office as a receptionist, and then I later became a legal secretary. Each new position I acquired, I always felt that I could do more, that I was capable of doing more. And that word is what would drive me to like, okay, where do I go from here? And I became a legal secretary, and it was wonderful and I loved it and I was good at it. But I felt like, well, I could do more. Give me more responsibility. I want to do more. And that is what propelled me all the way to not just law school, but starting my own law firm and expanding my own law firm. And now I could do more. And so let's start a podcast, and, who knows what will come after this.
Yeah.
But I love it that's been something that's been echoing in your mind all these years. Yeah. And so, just keep doing more. And I'm really excited to see what that more looks like for you.
Yeah, thanks. It's such a small word, but it has a big meaning to it. And so I'm glad that you also can resonate with it, because I was like, I wonder if Rosie feels this way. I wonder if she ever felt this way.
And I do, but also think about it. It took you a while to realize the power of a four-letter word, because, your family was saying, we want more for you, mija. And you would hear it and okay, and then probably go outside and play.
Exactly.
And then, you kept hearing it, and it took you a while to realize that. And that's kind of too with my experience with education in general, because, and I've shared this with you many times, in our home, education wasn't a priority. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't expected. And so I never understood the power and the impact that an education could have on a life. And even though I became a lawyer, and I started my own practice, even then it didn't click that it's because of the education that I'm able to help all these people. And then one day it just hit me like, wow, had I not gotten that education, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And so now I go around and encourage people and let's figure out ways to get you back in school. Let's remove those obstacles. What barriers are holding you back? Let's figure it out, because it really is a key to a whole nother world, a whole nother life. And so you go to college, and you're not just first generation, but you're also a Latina. And so what cultural barriers did you face or have to overcome in order to be successful in college?
I think first and foremost, I didn't even know how to apply. Like that was like my first barrier, like before entering. And I knew once I got introduced to college, the universities, I knew that's what I wanted, but I just didn't know how I was going to get there. It was unreachable. And like you said, even at home, like, they didn't know what it was. It was an unspoken word at home. It was, foreign to us. And so I remember in high school, one of my friends says, go to talk to a counselor. And I went to the Boys and Girls Club and filled out my financial aid. And I think one of the barriers, and then I got into college, and one of the barriers was this, like, I wasn't prepared. I knew I wasn't prepared. And I know that you can't ever be 100% prepared of things, right? You got to just leap to it because that's what your dream is. And I think what it was, the barrier was, I didn't have that relationship. There were two different relationships, one at home and one on campus. And I didn't have that academic vocabulary going on at home. It was, the barrier was you didn't have anyone to give you a map. There was no map. There was no roadmap. There was no footsteps to follow. And so when you talk to people at home, it was just like, well, ¿qué te pasa? It's like school, you're just picking up where you left off and not knowing the transition of high school and college, and also just not having that support system. And then I think also I didn't know like how I was as a learner. Like, a lot of things were just, this is how it is, this is what you do. And so I got all those barriers. And then like financially, my family was there for me emotionally and spiritually, but financially I had to find my way in order to pay for college. And so one of the great things about going to Texas Wesleyan, that they had a partnership with Footworth ISD, and I don't know if they still do. It's called BTAP, and it's the Bilingual Teacher Association program. And so it helped me navigate those waters because I had left school for a little bit because I became a young mom, and then I came back. And so what it was doing for me with that program, I got internship credit, and I also got paid for working.
Oh, that's
I know,
wonderful.
right? And so I got those two. And so I was doing it for 2 years. And when I was a junior and a senior in college. And so that helped out with, paying for books or buying gas and this and that. And I think having those barriers, but also having mentors along the way, where our dean definitely reached out to us to have checkpoints and checkups. And I had a teacher who also had the same barriers as me, that I was in her classroom helping her in PPCD. And she would always be like, I know what you're going through. I feel you. I hear you. You're seeing. You can use my computer if you need to type up your paper.
I love that.
You can ask me any questions you have. I can help you fill out paperwork. And I think that if I didn't tell people my dreams and my goals, I don't think I would have had that support. But she knew where I was coming from. And so I think she just helped me. And so during my lunch break, I would take time to like type on my paper, and she would read it for me and edit, do some drafts for me and edit it for me. And I think that I was just honored to have that. And so that's why I feel like I have to give that back.
Yeah, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And you do give it back because you mentor and you inspire so many young ladies. One of the barriers that I see in our community when it comes to young Latinas that are college bound is a lot of the times the families are hesitant to send them away. They're limited. If they do go to college at all, they're limited to a certain geographic area because they don't want their daughters to go out of state or far away. And so whenever did that kind of play into your education path?
Yeah, I think I stayed close because I felt guilty. I think you have that guilt in it. First, you have the guilt of I'm the first in my family, and you feel guilty. You feel pride, but then guilt because the other ones before you could not do that, right? Like your mom and your grandparents. But then you also feel guilty of just staying close to home because ¿qué pasa si algo pasa? Like what if something happens? I have to be here. I have to help. And I don't think anyone ever said that. I think you just feel that. It's in the environment. It's something that is just there that lingers across. And I wish...
Uno nunca sabe.
Exactly.
So that's constantly like being repeated
all the time
in the home. And so then you kind of develop that mentality that you never know what's going to happen. So I better play it safe.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. They're always trying to play it safe. And you can play it safe. And so I think, just talking now, I wish I would have went, where I really wanted to, or applied to a further school. But I think everything happens for a reason. I was in a good university, and I continue to have those relationships with the university, and they continue to support me. And I have that network there. So it's really good. Yeah.
And so you were the first in your family, but you weren't the last.
No.
Tell me about that.
So I think one of the things was like, I go back to the title of being the first generation. I didn't know the magnitude that it carries. I just didn't know, I was just going along. These are my dreams. These are my goals. This is the list that I have, and I'm checking it off, and I'm accomplishing these things, and I didn't know. And, I think in your family and also like around your friends, people who are not doing it because it's unattainable, it's not reachable, they've never seen it before. You hear a lot of those whispers of se cree mucho, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard it too, right? And it's not that, it's just that you want more, right? And so I think that transition changed when I crossed that stage of when I started saying the stories of what I was doing. They started realizing, like, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do it. And I think that those transition, and now we do have a community in our family that we can reach out to each other for advice or help or support, or how did you do that? And we have our own networking system. It's like something that my daughter tells me, which really helps me out a lot. And I think the reason I didn't understand it was because until I crossed that stage and got my diploma of graduating with my bachelor's, that my grandmother got to see me before she passed. And I didn't know the pride that it came with it. And I think other people saw that what the pride comes with it was because when my grandmother and my uncles, and they passed as well, when they used to introduce me, they used to like give the person like my whole resume.
Oh, I love that.
Like, I told you, this is my granddaughter, this is my niece, and she graduated from Texas Wesleyan, and they would just go on and on and on. And then at the end, they would tell them my name, right? And it was people that they didn't know. And so I knew that they were talking positive about it, because I feel like before they didn't speak about it, or you hear those whispers because they didn't know how. They didn't know what to tell me. They didn't know what, 3-hour credits meant, when you were there all day, like, how can you just get that? And so, but I think that they said that, and I did not realize the magnitude it was and why they were introducing me. And I never stopped them. I wanted to. I was cringing inside. Like, I was like, stop putting so much light in me, stop doing that. But I never stopped them because I knew that they were proud. And just recently, I was like sitting in it, and I was like, oh, they were just so proud.
Mm-hmm.
You give them that sense of worth, of we belong, and more people can do this because someone did it. And I think once you start doing that and showing that, I think you open the doors to other things. But it wasn't always like that. It's not always pretty. It's a little messy. It's hard, at times, because like I said, you don't have the map to help you. And nobody understands you at home, and nobody understands you at school of what you're going through. And so only the people who really know, and everyone has their own journey. But I think that was it. It totally had changed. And there's a community now of prideness, of that you've been seen and that you belong.
I love it. And I love it that your grandparents, they saw something in you, and they encouraged you to go pursue more, go after more, accomplish more. Yeah. And I know you and I have had conversations about that, how sometimes that's what it takes. It takes another person looking at you and saying, hey, I really think you would be great at this, or I really think that this is something that you would enjoy. And now you get to be that person for others, for the young ladies that you mentor, and the members of HWNT that attend your professional development programs and things like that. And I think about the Spider-Man movie, the quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And so now that you've acquired the success, that you reached this goal, and now you're able to go and use that to encourage others and bless others, and help others see that they too are capable of doing more and acquiring more. So I just think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And like I said, I was just like, oh, Rosie did it again. She's opening up something. I don't know what she's opening up. And it was like, I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's because of my age or where I'm at in life. It's a different kind of hit. Like I said, I've talked about it. I've lived through it. And I think it's just because my daughter's very curious, like, how did you do it? Because there wasn't so much resources, right? Like there is now. And how did you know what to do? And I think it was just like you've opened so many flashbacks that I've had. Like, let me make sure I say something about this, because it just really opened a lot of flashbacks of where I was. And I don't know why it was hidden for a while. But now I don't know. It's just like something that I'm very proud to speak of, because I know other people can do it too. And if like there's someone out there that is going to be first generation or wants to be first generation, that I say go for it, do that and find your network. I think the one thing that really helps me is because you have that network of people, of women who want to see you do better, and you have men who want to see you do better, and you're so good at that as well. Like, you see something in someone and you reach out to them, to different activities or different organizations. And I think that that's what has helped me definitely along the way to reflect of who I am. And I think that those pit spots is really important because you have to reflect on yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you talk about that. As you're saying that, it makes me think of Ed, my husband, because whenever I go to speak and, sometimes I'll, practice with him and he'll say, "Oh, no, you can't say that." And I'm like, "Why not?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, you don't want them to know that." And I was like, "But I do, because I want them to be able to understand, like, yeah, there's going to be downs, but then there are also going to be ups, and you got to ride it through." And so it's funny because a lot of those things are easy to be left behind in your story, especially when you meet people and they just see, like, the accomplishments, right? But they don't really understand the journey and what it took you to get there. And that's when you said, "Oh, se cree mucho." There is a lot of that, unfortunately, in first generation college graduates, because you chose to take a different path, and the people that didn't take that path are now struggling, and then they see your success and your accomplishments and your awards and your recognitions, and it does create a little bit of
friction.
Yeah, it does, unfortunately. But you got to keep telling your story, and then eventually, you might inspire them as well.
Yeah.
And then, they'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
"Hey, I have a question.
Yeah.
Where did you go to college?" Or "How did you do it?" And, that kind of thing.
That's so true, because I do get a lot of those now, like emails or texts or like messages. Because I always feel like before, I guess I hid it because I was hesitant, right? I probably was like Ed, like, no, I can't say all of that. But like I said, it's messy sometimes, and sometimes it's hard, when you're going through things that you've never done before in your life. It's, you see financially that it could be hard, right? And so I think one of the things that I always tell myself, it's not where I started my journey, it's what I do with my journey that is an impactful thing. And so I think if I can learn something where people gave to me, I can give back.
Absolutely. So if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Well, definitely, she wouldn't believe me about the hardship. She would be like, "Oh my goodness, we're going through this." And I think, definitely God gives you things that you can only handle. But there were some times that I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to handle this, God," But definitely my faith has gone through. So I would tell her to hold on to her faith, something that my grandmother taught me. And I'll also just tell her, don't have fear. And that's such a hard thing to say. It's another 4-letter word, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think and don't be afraid of failure. Because failure to me, and I was like learning that it's like a redirection of the path that you're going. Like, maybe this didn't happen because something over here is waiting for you.
Oh, I love that.
Or maybe you have to learn this skill before you get to the next level. And so I feel like it's a time when you do feel like it's a failure to reflect on what you did and what you can do better, and then start reaching out to your resources and say, "Hey, can you help me? Because something right here is hindering me to go forth."
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
One of my favorites lines is, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And so I find myself, in times where I'm kind of scared to take a leap or try something new. I pause for a moment, I reflect, and then I ask myself, what is it that you would do if you weren't afraid? And most of the time it's afraid of failure, right? And so then I start walking through it. Well, I would do this and I would do that. And then I start to kind of envision myself doing those things, and it helps me overcome that hesitation. And, and then I dive in, and, sometimes it won't go your way, but other times it will. And if you don't jump in and push past that fear, you're never going to know.
That's true. That's true. And it's scary. Fear is just scary. But it's always going to be there. unless you do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one final question.
Okay.
Okay, so because of your accomplishments in your education, in your work, in your community, you've been able to be invited into groups and tables and rooms that otherwise you probably wouldn't have access to. Tell me about that. When you walk in those rooms, do you ever feel a sense of el imposter syndrome? Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Let me turn around and run.
Yeah.
And if you do, how do you work through that?
Most definitely. I mean, I have to say it goes with the career that I'm in and also, going to the university that has helped me into these rooms and getting invited. But everyone does, right? I feel like it. Imposter syndrome does happen to me more. I think, especially being the first gen, I think it happens more to you because you're in places that you didn't think that you belong or that you were seen and so one of the things that I do is sometimes when I am in there, I'm like, when I'm inside, I have those voices of telling me like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. But then I realized that I was reflecting on that as well. I had a colleague who said, I was like, how do you do it? Like, in our career path. And she's like, well, sometimes you're invited to the table and sometimes they don't want to share the seats. So just bring your own seat. Just bring your own carrito and sit there. But when I'm at part of those organizations and I feel like I don't belong, I have to resonate and remember myself that I was invited for a reason. And I have to keep on telling myself that because there's been times where I leave the email sitting for a while before responding to it. I'll respond shortly, but don't respond to the call because I'm like, wait, is this for me? Like they really don't mean me. Like I'm sure I'm not gonna get it, right? And so then when you apply and you get in there, they really do want to hear your voice. They want to hear what you're saying. And so once you feel a little bit more comfortable, again, it's building that trust. And one of the books that I'm reading, it says trust is the oxygen within relationships. And so I think I have to build that trust and build my own trust in that organization and the people around it. And it takes me maybe like 2 sessions, a session. And then I really hear them say, we really want to hear from everyone. And it allows us to, when you are in that leader position, that you allowed everyone to speak and give their opinion or give their thought process of what you're inviting to the table so everyone feels connected. And I think that I've been in those kind of places where I feel more relaxed. Definitely have to give myself a pep talk before I go in there and prep myself. But I always tell myself, if you were invited, you were meant to be there. And then there's times where I do have to call a buddy. I have to phone a friend and say, hey, I've been called to do this and that. And they've always questioned me like, well, why do you think you don't think you belong there? Why are you doing this? And why, they give me all those questionings. And I have to remember, if you were invited or it was planted in your heart, a seed, that you should go forth and conquer all of it.
Your voice that you hear is a lot more tame than mine because your voice is like, you don't belong here. My voice is like, ¿Quién te crees? Like, why do you think that you're allowed in here?
Yeah.
So my voice is a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to have those people that can remind you, like, no, you do belong. You are worthy. You do bring value.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful that you have that community and you've had the support your whole life. When you were a child, it was your family, your mom, your grandparents, and now that you're older, it's your sisters in HWT, your sisters in community service. And so it's so important to have that and also to be that for other women. I remember when a couple years ago, I was invited to coffee by the chair of a new nonprofit that I had just joined. I was new to it. I was learning. I was very shy, very quiet. And I remember having a conversation with her and she tells me, and I'm telling you all this because I know that one day you will chair this organization and I want you to, have this knowledge. And I remember hearing that and thinking like, what? Like, is she crazy? Like, I could never do that. But I turned out to be wrong and she was right. And the fact that it took another person to tell me that somebody else saw it, because that voice in me was like, ¿Quién te crees? You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Go home, girl. And so,
and I think it's those voices too of like your family is in you, right? Like, and se cree mucho. Like if you go do that, te vas a creer mucho. And all, and I do, sometimes she can be firm and sometimes she can be very like just soft with me. But I think it's that. I think, also like I didn't believe in myself. And I think that that's one of the things that I have to learn to believe in myself. But I think it also comes with that first generation because you never saw that in your family. And so I think just telling myself that and just reminding myself, like, I soy los sueños de mi abuelitos,
I love that.
I really do believe that. And, and that their hard work and their hard struggles and stories wasn't for nothing. Like, and so that's something that once I've accomplished something, or if I go back after a meeting or something, I reflect and say, okay, I hope I've made you proud. I continue to hope to make you proud. And of course, there's some failures that I've done, right, that I didn't make them so proud of myself. And we also we all have those moments.
That's for another episode.
We're not sharing that right now. But I just keep on telling myself, like, their sacrifices wasn't for nothing. And so I wish that they could be here to see me, but I know that they're watching over me. So I think that definitely resonates with everyone, especially people who are first generation, because we were in places that we shouldn't belong. We feel like we shouldn't belong.
Right. And I'm certain they're proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm honored to be your friend. I'm really excited about all the work that we're going to do together out there in the community. And I want to just say thank you so much for answering my call, for saying yes, for showing up and helping me kick off Chisme Culture and Podcast, our very first episode. And so thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship, your advice, and everything that you're doing. And you can always count on me to be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
I'm so excited for this.
Yay! Love you too.
Love you too.
Love you. So this was our very first episode of Chisme Culture, el podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.